Okay, thanks everybody for coming out to our town hall today. Purpose of this meeting is to communicate the changes we've made recently and some of the progress we've made so far, and to let everybody know where we're headed in the future and get everybody's input on that. We want to make sure everybody's involved and informed on what's going on with the RTAC. If anybody has questions as we're going, just let us know. And we'll also try to have some time at the end for any other questions that people might have. And Craig should be recording this for later review or for anybody that wasn't able to make it. So first we have the recent staff changes that were made. Skylar and I have come on as the new ATM and DATM, and we've been working to figure out the new positions and get things headed in a good direction for everybody. The TA position is open for applications, and we're hoping to have an active and engaged training department with lots of training staff that are providing good service. And we want our students and teachers to have everything they need to succeed and do their best. We've also got a new EC team with Eric and Linux. We appreciate all the work they've been doing. The FNO went pretty well. We have a lot of events coming up. And we also have the facilities engineer position open for applications. We appreciate everything that Owen did over his many years here. And we're going to have some new developments here that we already have to share later in this meeting. And we're hoping to have some good progress with the facilities files. And if you have any questions, ideas, or concerns for any of us, please feel free to come to us and let us know. And next, we have some changes to activity policy we're thinking of implementing. And Skylar, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So as of right now, the activity policy is pretty loose. Nothing's official that we're changing as of yet, but it is something that I kind of want to put on everyone's kind of horizon. Um, some of the things that we're kind of wanting to shift our focus on is if you want to remain an active controller at Seattle, you need to remain proficient at what you're able to control at. So we want to go away from people maintaining their minimum hours by controlling Eugene ground, as an example. There's nothing wrong with controlling at these smaller facilities, but if you're only controlling minimum hours and they're not on your major positions, then something's wrong and we need to change it. Um, Not something that's necessarily going to be enforced right away, but again, the intent is if you're S3, major or minor, that you control at one of the facilities that are our primary facilities, depending on your rating, which is Seattle or Portland. If you're major certified, I don't care if it's on Portland or on Seattle, just that you're actually controlling at one of those facilities if you're able to do so. If your major tower, minor approach, then we would prefer if it was a minor approach position in that situation. But as long as it's something close to your rating at one of those facilities, and that's kind of what we're looking for. We don't have anything to system enforce it as of this point. I'm really kind of hoping that we can avoid having to system enforce this and just ask that people please do their minimum hours at Seattle or Portland at the highest rated position that they're able to do so. And outside of those 2 hours, control wherever you want. That's not a problem. Further to that, we also want to have our staff more engaged and active within our community. So, kind of a tentative idea is that we should have staff positions with more strict requirements on controlling. Nothing crazy, but additional controlling requirements as well as their required duties, mentor instructing, the FE duties, whatever. The idea is to make sure that we're just as active, if not more active and engaged with, kind of our community and with what we have going, so that we're not disconnected from it. It's also again just really really important that everyone remains proficient. Um, so that they are able to control for events if they want to, or kind of serve a purpose to the art tech. Because ultimately, if everyone's controlling minimum hours at random facilities that don't get traffic just to stay on the roster, they're not doing anyone any good. They're just not a benefit to the art tech. It's not driving traffic. It's not driving improvement and results. It's just not worth it. So the ask moving forward is, please control at your highest rated position. Please do so at either Portland or Seattle for the minimum hours. If you're controlling more than the minimum hours, you're well, I mean, you're here at the meetings, you're probably controlling more than the minimum hours. But anything outside of those 2 hours, do whatever you want.
All right. Thanks, Skylar. If anybody has questions or concerns about that, feel free to let us know. For the training department, we have new staff at Bet USA heading up their side of the training, and they're working on some new initiatives that they'll be announcing. Their main goal is to provide a lot more support for all of the art techs at their level. So they're hoping to have more resources so that new students can be taught the fundamental material there, and that when they come to us for training, we'll be able to focus more on the specific procedures for our RTAC and airports. And they're also hoping to have more support for the teachers. So when we have somebody new joining the training staff, they'll get some basic information about teaching styles, learning styles, different techniques that they can use, and provide more support for our training staff for any issues that may have or help them to be better at what they do. Another thing that I've been working on is kind of a practice system here. And so uh, I think we found in training that when folks are learning how to give clearances, it kind of takes some time just for them to see a lot of different clearances and practice through them. So I worked on a system here where it basically gives you a flight strip, and then you will look through it and see if there's anything in here that should be changed or corrected and decide what their initial altitude should be. And then you click on score and it will tell you that the G is not RVSM for their altitude and their initial altitude should be 4 per the SOP and the aircraft type and stuff. And it's not perfect, and I'm still doing some work on it, but it's something we'd like to have available to have folks be able to do more practice on their own and become proficient at checking their flight plans. And we also have some new OBS CBT. Skylar, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we'll get a little bit more heavy into it once we start talking about the facilities updates, but because they kind of go hand in hand. But long story short is Salt Lake has been very, very generous. Kyle has been helping out a ton with getting things up to speed, and we have a bunch of stuff from them as a result of that will um, aid us in streamlining things and making things a lot better. Part of that is a five or 5 different presentations of basic setups. So it's going to cover our new file system setup, how to get that all good up and running into 2 separate slides, a VRC scope setup, part 1 and part 2, and then an automated workstation as well that we'll kind of get into. So it at least helps get people kind of situated and set up with the new file system that we're going to be running, as well as a basic VRC scope to then pull from for other positions at a later point. The hope is that we will also be introducing more CBTs over time, but I know that USA is kind of planning on doing a bunch of training stuff in that realm anyway, so we kind of have to figure out what they're going to do before we nosedive too heavily into that. But that's kind of what we have for now.
All right. And here's our training activity recently for the year. We've been doing a pretty good job of keeping high activity. Traditionally, as we go into the end of the year. Activity kind of drops off with the holidays and all. And then the top graphs actually from VAT USA, they've put in place a new central system for training requests, and you can see some interesting stuff like the types of training we do each month and how that changes. And we've done a lot of document updates first. We've updated the S46 and P80 SOPs, a lot of small adjustments that we needed to make. There are some changes to how we handle the Pearson field departures on the delivery and the radar side to make it closer to how they do things in the real world. We're trying to make the runway configuration less restrictive. So we don't want to necessarily mandate everyone use the same calm wind runway, but more take a look at the weather and see what makes sense. And it doesn't make sense to have a situation where you're running south flow because that's per the per the rules. That's what you're supposed to be doing. But the TAF says you're going to be north, and it can sometimes bounce back and forth around the tailwind limit. So we want to allow people to use whatever makes sense based on the weather. And you can read the forum post for more details about the changes that were made to those. And a big one is our new ZSE on route SOP. And we were able to get a lot of the real world documents that they use, and that helped form a lot of the content. We made a lot of adjustments for things that we don't really have to deal with on VATSIM and try to simplify things a little bit. And the big thing with that is we've created some new center sectors to do better splits rather than our old ABCD to cater to the arrival and departure streams to allow us to better handle event traffic so you don't have one sector that's kind of everything above Seattle trying to handle all of that. Everybody can share in that a little bit. And the SOP also covers handoffs between those sectors when they should ideally be done, and some LOAs with the S46 and P80 for how handoffs should be handled between those sectors, and some of the other minor trade-cons as well. And Skylar, did you want to add anything about that?
Yeah, so a little bit about the sector files, or the sector splits is they do deviate from the real world ABCD split for now. The idea was to get an immediate fix in for event traffic. It is based off of real world high sectors, but it's the combination of them are not following the real world ABCD. So we kind of have things carrying over so that you only have like sector 10 deals with Hawks arrivals up until Battleground, and then Seattle 4 does it. Glacier stays with Sector 18. Sector 47 deals with Hood and Shin's arrivals. Sector 30 just deals with Timber. So it breaks things up a lot better. The intent in due time is to revert back to the ABCD splits with more details on appropriate controller coordination with arrivals into S46. We don't have access to his ZSE en route SOP. That's not something that we've been able to get our hands on as of yet. So we're kind of hobbling together information based off of intra-facility LOAs, which is what a bulk of this document is. But this will at least work for events moving forward until we can get a better SOP in place that deals with proper coordination for these arrivals. Because Vish was just getting absolutely slammed during the FNO and it wasn't working. So this will be better. Will not be a permanent solution because it's not as realistic as we would like, but it serves its purpose in the meantime.
All right. And another little details instead of our old north-south split, we've now made it an east-west split. Again, trying to use those sectors and split the traffic flows as best as we can.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to stick to that. That'll be the default configuration. If an event calls for a more north-south split, then we can do that. We can do a three-way split. We can do a four-way split. We can do a five-way split. Like there's options to combine sectors as necessary. So it's just a basic rough guide of what we would be defaulting to in a two controller configuration with an assumed traffic level that's somewhat even from west to east going into Portland or Seattle, but it's not a hard and fast rule. The CIC would be able to make that determination depending on the traffic or the TMU in that case.
All right, and next is the some updates to facility files. Of course, we've updated them to include those new center sectors, and Skylar will tell you more about the work we're doing on them.
So as of right now, the existing way that we download files is by going to the download section on our website, grabbing a file, and then extracting it, putting it somewhere safe, and then loading it in. We're changing the way that this works. I'll get into that in a second. But as of right now, what's available on the website is RX Cycle 2007, which is what's been available for a while now, but with the updated sector splits. So the VRC file has both the five-way split, the east-west split, and every single one of the real-world high and low sector splits as well, because we'll need that in the future. But it's usable as it is. Um, and then there's a file structure under the VRC kind of folder that includes the Traycon files as well for VRC. Same for kind of VSTARS and VERAM. If they've needed updates, those are updated in that specific file. We will be moving away from this master file, which again I'll get into in a bit as well. But this master file includes everything from your alias, the POF, the VATIS profiles are more organized on the website as well. So it's a little bit easier to figure out on that side. But like I said, we've got an awesome new system courtesy of Salt Lake that we'll talk about in a second as well for that. Um, so VATIS profiles were updated as per the last event. So we have an IDS website now that you can refer to for the major fields during events that'll update the ATIS information live with the ATIS codes and everything as it's happening during the event. It also allows our events team to post TMU notices, anything else that we need. There's also a system for PyReps as well that can be logged through that system if you so desire to kind of have a realistic PyRep reporting system for that. But this is kind of a mandatory use for Seattle and Portland during events. The latest VATIS files on the website do automatically pull to the IDS system for Seattle and Portland. Don't think there's going to be much use for adding other ones to that, but you can always pull the real world data from there for the weather, and then any ATIS information that's live will be there and update as soon as it updates on network as well. Um, other thing in regards to the sector files is we are missing some accurate airport diagrams. The issue with the way the files were set up before is the 1900 ARAC cycle had some updated airport diagrams where the 2007 one doesn't. Seattle and Portland look fine, but apparently there's some more missing stuff, so that will get updated in time, but that's going to be all into the new system. Before I dive into the new system, anything that's on the website right now, as far as VATIS files, alias, POF, and the VERAM files and all of that will stay the way that it is. Moving forward, we're working into a beta system that will provide a better update method moving forward. But what's available on the website now is likely going to be the final iteration of any updates that are done in this format. So keep that in mind. If we need to make some small tweaks, we can, but that should stay as it is. And then just on the downloads page under VATIS profiles, you're going to see a secondary fields, a Portland, and a Seattle. So everything smaller like Boeing Field, Spokane, Bellingham, Pasco, anything of the smaller stuff that we've kind of put together for VATIS profiles is in the secondary fields download. And then the file structure in that master file 2007 is just better organized by program type and position. So it's going to be a lot easier to navigate exactly what you're looking for the information. Like I said, this isn't a permanent solution. We've got a different solution moving forward, but at least the current iteration of website downloads is pretty straightforward, and you shouldn't have any issues grabbing what you need. Oh, it's a fun time. Okay, I'm gonna have to share my screen for this one, because that's just yeah, how it's gonna go. Let me get that up. But we'll kind of go over the way the new system is going to work. I can't see the count on who's in what channel. So while I'm just waiting for people to kind of bump into this, which I think almost everybody is, new file system moving forward is going to utilize Dropbox. The idea behind this is it's both separated from the website, so it's not contingent on that service being up or down, but it also allows us to provide updates in an automated fashion. This is something that Kyle Sanders from Salt Lake has been working with me on and has been so gracious to provide this information for us and systems for us. They've been using it for their systems for a very long time, and I'm very, very, very excited for what this holds in the future for us. The CBTs, which we will provide a link to, again, goes through the entire setup on how to get Dropbox set up and get everything synchronized to pull from this folder structure. But the basics of this is you'll get access to Dropbox, to this public folder. VATIS has all of our ATIS files, makes sense. Other downloads is the VRC custom font, the Sweatbox server file. Sorry, that's the VRC font. This is like custom colors for VRC profiles if you want it. Our LOH cheat sheet, the quick reference guide, and then a workstation auto setup. This will now be the most accurate way of getting up-to-date information it will always be updated. This is something that I can update at a moment's notice. You'll get immediate access to these updated files. So that'll always be the most accurate way to get it moving forward. Now, keep in mind, this is still considered beta, so we're going to try and keep stuff on the website as up-to-date as we can, but this will be the new system moving forward. And then under the live update for the facility files, this includes your alias file, your POF file, your VRC sector files. There's only one now instead of approach sectors. It's just one big one, kind of like VERAM is. Then you've got your nav data for airports and waypoints for VERAM, your main file, and then same thing for VStars. We've simplified this a little bit because there's some combined sections like Chinook and Cascade are combined. So we've minimized all the files that we have here. So all of this gets updated by the FE team or by myself, depending on how things are going. And it'll kind of pull from here. So the CBT is going to go over this workstation auto setup. This is the most important part of this because this is how you're going to get your updates. So I'm going to run it, which you should have it as a shortcut there. It's going to bring this up. You can type help if you need help. If you don't understand anything, it's got a pretty straightforward breakdown on everything. But your normal process, once you've done the initial setup, which it has instructions for, it's super easy. You just hit enter. You'll select what radar client you'll be using. So in this case, I'm going to go A for VRC. It's now going to do the following. It's going to open a predetermined list of websites. No, you don't get my feedback. It opens up AFV, it opens up VATIS, and it opens up your VRC file. It also, when you launch your VERAM and VStars, it automatically pulls the airports and waypoints data to update your AIRAC cycle data to the most current one. So the one that's in here right now is 2013. 2014 comes out on the 30th. once you have all this set, I'm not going to go through how to link it to the Dropbox file so that auto updates that's in the CBT. You will want to pay attention to that. But the important and cool thing about this is we have redone our files. So the fun ones, of course, are going to be the airports. We no longer have crazy colors on the airports. It looks a little bit more like VERAM does. So a lot easier to kind of see. You still do have all your labels. If you like that. Don't know why you'd like that, but it's there. And we now have, this is the part that excites me. Scroll out. We now have everything for everything that we would ever need. So the states, Alaska, a little bit of oceanic on either side, Hawaii, all of that stuff. This does include things such as every single airway, every single airport. It's all included in this new file, and this is something that'll come over to VERAM as well. So it's a lot of information that's in these new files, but it's all kind of pertinent and relevant, and then the auto updates, of course. So that'll be that. It opens, like I said, it opens up a couple of web pages. These are important that you go over them. The first one is going to be a link to a change log. This will tell you of any important changes. Now, your VERAM files and your vStars files will never automatically update, at least right now. You have to go in when VERAM starts up or vStars starts up, you have to import the new file. So you would import it from the specific file. You only have to do this anytime that we say there's been an update. So that'll be in the change log. So that's why we need to be reading the change log every single time we use this system. So that will be mandatory that you read the change log. Opens up preferred routes, opens up VATtastic, which is doing its thing. EMU notices for VAT USA. This file I didn't even know existed. This file gives us everything for aircraft type designator, the class, whether it's a fixed wing or a helicopter, the engine type with the weight class, the wake category, manufacturer, model, name information for literally anything that exists, provided by the FAA and updated constantly. Aviation weather information, kind of a briefing, is going to provide you with airport data that's relevant for all the primary fields that we have placed in here, which is going to be essentially all, not all, but will be updated to all of our towered fields plus Vancouver. So you kind of have an idea of what's going on. And then the ZSE pre-duty weather briefing. You don't have to watch it, but of course it's recommended that you do. Mandatory for events, but it's just kind of included. So the important ones really is going to be the change log. This is what we really, really, truly care about. There will be a command reference one at some point in the next couple of days, but that's the most important one to really kind of review for that. There's a whole bunch of other awesome stuff that's coming as far as our systems are concerned. The alias file is now something like 53,000 lines of code as opposed to what it used to be of 300. So like it's ginormous. And it does serve a purpose, and we'll go over that in time. The important one that you need to know, because it still refers to a lot of Salt Lake, but the important commands that we need to keep in mind is basically going to be .feedback. It's going to open up a Google page that just has a section for you to leave feedback and your CID. This should be used for any kind of feedback that can be done. We really should be trying to do it through this system. Primary focus right now, of course, would be for the beta of this new file structure, but it can be related to almost anything. We can do it through that system as well. The beta for this, again, is optional. If you want to take part in this, then I will link all the CBTs. You just need to follow them in order, and we can get you set up with the beta for this. I'm hoping in about a month or two, we will have enough data to be able to make this the official permanent live solution that we will be using moving forward. The back end side of stuff I won't bother getting into, but we have set it up to, and by we, I mean Kyle, set this entire system up in a format that allows us to do RX cycle updates with literally it's like 2 clicks. It takes 2 seconds to do RX cycle updates. So we will always have the most up-to-date AROC data. So we're on 2013 right now. 2014 goes live on the 30th. We already have everything good to go to be able to push that live the moment that happens. I'll spend a decent amount of time just like hanging out in Discord if people have questions as to how to set this up, if they want to set it up. I'm sure Kyle doesn't have a problem answering questions as well because this is literally all of his work. I've just helped deal with some sector file stuff. Otherwise, he very much gets full credit for everything on the back end of this. But the goal moving forward is you launch your script, your workstation script, you open up the client you need to, you check the change log. If you need to update your VERAM, you do. Otherwise, alias, POF, sector files, everything, nav data automatically updated. You don't have to download it every single time. It pulls it live every single time. So it's a lot. There's a lot more that's going to be coming with this, courtesy of Salt Lake, but it's a very, very exciting future for actually getting updated data and allowing us to focus on the more important things like having accurate airport diagrams or doing cool new things with our systems as opposed to just doing cycle updates. Kyle, I don't know if you have any quick comments to mention about the quick overview. The idea, again, is that you need to watch the CBTs. They're self-explanatory. They will get you set up and running correctly for this.
I would like to parrot that can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to parrot that. When we make a CBT on telling you how to set something up like that, it's every bit of those slides were made by us because it's important for you to follow it. Don't skip anything. And because you put in the initial work to get this set up, and everything else from that point on is smooth sailing. You never have to go and update any more files. It's already on your computer with this Dropbox system. The little bit of updating you have to do, the file is already there. You don't have to download it. You don't have to unzip it and bring it into a special directory and so on and so forth. If right now you subscribe to Navigraph to update your ERAM or VSTARS nav data, don't worry about that. We provide it for free now. Nicholas Bowling down there, our FE over at Salt Lake, and I have been working on a logic system that parses the FAA data early, so you don't have to wait for Navigraph to release their stuff. We just provide it to you. So if you want access to all that stuff, go through the CBTs exactly how we tell you to, and you'll be set up for the foreseeable future. And I will be hanging out here after this meeting if anybody has any questions about how this system works.
I think that mostly covers the part that we need to talk about in regards to this system for now. If we want to navigate back to Matt's screen, I suppose.
The main part of the presentation. So if anybody has questions, please let us know.
Why do ghosts have clothes?